Welcome to Pluralsight, everybody. This is Joe Astorino, CCIE number 24347, and I'd like to welcome you today to this course on multi-protocol label switching, or more affectionately known as MPLS. So first of all, I'd like to just get started here by going over a general course overview. So let's talk a little bit about how the course is structured and what we're going to be learning throughout this course on MPLS. Now we're going to start things off with the basics of MPLS, or MPLS fundamentals. So really this first module is all about, again, a little bit about the course, and then going into the basics of MPLS, like what exactly is MPLS, what is it used for, the basics of how it functions, and then we're going to talk a little bit about why MPLS. So we'll understand that, yes, we're switching packets based on labels, but why in the world would we want to do this? Some of the practical applications, some of the main reasons why MPLS has gained such popularity. So we're going to talk a little bit about the why. After we're done talking about why we might want to use MPLS, what are some of the advantages? In this first module here, we will then start looking at some of the terms around MPLS. So some of these fundamental ideas about MPLS as far as terms like label switch routers, ingress label switch routers, intermediate label switched routers, egress label switch routers, label switch paths, FECs, all these little things that you might have read about that are going to build the foundation for everything else later as we go through these topics. And that's really going to be pretty much the first module. As we run into the second module, we're going to get a little bit more in depth with our MPLS fundamentals and start talking about the nuts and bolts of how this stuff actually works. Okay, what protocols does it use? How do those protocols function? We'll talk about things like the label distribution protocol. We'll talk about the MPLS data plane, the MPLS control plane. How do those things function? And how do they all snap in together? We'll look at some examples of the MPLS data plane as far as how exactly do MPLS packets get label switched through the network. And then we'll take a look at MPLS ping and trace route. Now once we've laid the basic foundations for what MPLS is and what it does, then we're going to look at a hands-on configuration where we're going to start building our lab for this course. Okay, so we're actually going to get on a rack of gear and start configuring MPLS for basic unicast forwarding. Okay, now this is going to serve as the foundation for the rest of our lab throughout the course. We're going to then build on that later once we get to some of the more complex things like layer 3 VPNs. Speaking of which, once we're done configuring the basic infrastructure, or the core infrastructure, then we're going to talk all about MPLS layer 3 VPNs. One of the coolest topics, I think, throughout the CCIE curriculum is MPLS and layer 3 VPNs. Once you understand what's going on with MPLS in the core of the network, underneath of it all, and then you see how MPLS layer 3 VPNs function on top of that, I think you're really going to start to see things gel and come together. It's one of my favorite parts of the entire course is the layer 3 VPNs. So of course, as usual, we're going to talk theory. We're going to talk how does this stuff function, and then we're going to get on a real rack of equipment, and we're going to have several different modules where we're going through and configuring different aspects of layer 3 VPN on the gear and explaining what we're doing step by step. So we're going to see things there like multi-protocol BGP with VPN v4 addresses, mutual redistribution. We're going to see some things with IGP routing as far as how do we do it in VRFs, everything that we need to know about layer 3 VPNs. And once we're done with that, in the later modules here, we're going to take a look at extranet theory and a little bit of the configuration. So now we're getting into, okay, if we have an MPLS Layer 3 VPN and maybe multiple customers, how do we allow those customers to maybe share routing information, or how do we prepare our network to offer something like a shared service? Maybe there's a shared, I don't know, IPS service or a shared internet service. How do we get that routing information injected into the network so that multiple customers can take advantage of it? And then finally, we're going to close things out by talking a little bit about the theory of ATOM, or any transport over MPLS. That's basically how we are tunneling Layer 2 protocols over our MPLS backbone, and then we'll talk a little bit about VPLS. So that's basically the course overview. So let's jump right into what is MPLS. I'm excited about the course, and I hope you guys are as excited as I am to jump into MPLS. So let's get started.